welcome back to the Illuminations Media Network. I'm Tamara, your host, and I am super excited to bring you a repeat guest. You know, we always love those repeat guests because they become like friends. You know, we get close and we have a certain connection. Well, today I have the amazing Thomas Gates. He's a near-death experiencer, but beyond that, he's a healer. And he's a person that you can tell, you'll be able to tell that he really loves humanity. And he's been brought back to do some amazing things. And we're going to get into all of that. All right. Welcome back to the show, Thomas. So glad you could join us again. It's been years.
I know. Thank you so much for having me today. When you said you wanted to do this, I was all excited because I remember when we did this before. We had so much fun, and I just really appreciate you having me here today. You do
I'm
good
so
work.
glad.
You do very good work too, by the way.
You know, thank you for that. I can't help it. Uh, it started with getting a tape recorder for my birthday, and I would just interview my Barbies.
You started early. I'm
Um,
sure that's a story to tell.
it was so much fun. Uh,
Hmm.
well, Thomas, near-death experience. You know, you're sharing. First time we met, you were in a collaboration, and it was called "Thank God I Guide," right?
Well,
Yeah.
it's called Thank God Ellipsis, and it was a compilation book of
Okay.
contributed stories of trauma and things they'd gone through, and then how they it was so hard to face while it was happening. But then it's really about gratitude. So by the time they got through whatever the crisis was and came out on the other side, they had a sense of gratitude for having actually gone through it because of where it brought them today and more about who they know, who they really are being in this world.
Hmm. I think about that so often, and it helps me to have the gratitude uh, in the beginning.
It's hard sometimes, you know.
It is, but it's like a muscle that you develop where
Yeah.
I know everything is going to be just fine.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to start with gratitude. And I
There,
find that it just soothes all of that for me. And
that's there.
I teach that meditation.
Mm.
So yeah, it's very, very helpful. But anyway, you got to tell us all about this experience. There might be some people who, haven't seen that first interview that we did, some people who may not have read the book or know anything about near-death experiences. That time I died,
Yeah.
right? So, Thomas, what happened during
Well,
near-death experience?
when this happened, I was 22 years old and had been getting sick for a while and didn't know what was going on. I just thought I had a virus or a bug I couldn't shake. And I kept getting sick, then I'd feel good, then I'd feel bad again, back and forth. And finally, one day it hit me. I had to go to the hospital because I collapsed in pain, and they rushed me there. And they said, "Oh, you have an acute case of appendicitis. So don't worry, it'll be all good. 2 or 3 days you'll be home if all goes well." Well, it didn't go well. And it turned out they discovered, yes, the appendix was about to rupture, but they also saw a lot of inflammation all around in that area. So they knew there was something else going on, and so they had to do exploratory surgery, uh, which was very complex. Then they found a large tumor in my colon, in the transverse colon, and they knew, okay, we have to remove this now because we don't know if it's malignant or benign. And so they removed that part of the colon, and they somehow were able to connect it back together. So I didn't have to have any kind of appliance later, which was nice. But boy, it was an intense thing, a 9-hour procedure. Um,
Mm.
and so as a result of the nature of that surgery, it became a contaminated procedure. And so I developed major sepsis as a result. And by the time my fever hit 107, that was it. I had to leave. You get evicted. But the crazy thing is too, see, someone walked into the room after a while. This was about maybe a week after the surgery, and things kept going downhill. And somebody walked into the room and looked at me, and I looked unconscious to them. I couldn't speak. You know, then my father was in the room, and they came in and they said, "We're sorry. We've done everything we can. We're not sure he's going to make it." Well, I heard that. And of course, I'm thinking like, excuse me, I think you're in the wrong room, buddy. I'm not dying. I'm too young to die. It's the most ridiculous thing I'd ever heard. There's no way I'm not dying. But I couldn't speak and say that, but that's what I thought. Then in a couple of minutes, they left. They walked out of the room and I guess left my father with that thought. Um, and then sure enough, the process started happening for me. And at
Oh,
first, I realized that,
process of passing.
yeah, yeah. So I didn't realize that's what was happening at first when this started, but I had been in tremendous pain. I mean, really, really the most intense pain I've ever experienced in my life. And it had worn me down quite a bit. So what happened was all of a sudden that pain came to a screeching halt. It's like, boom, it's gone. And that really got my attention.
Okay.
And then simultaneously, I began to feel sensation down in the bottom of my feet
Mhm.
and then moving up my feet. And there was a sheet over me up to my chest here while I'm in the hospital bed. But wherever the sensation was, I could see that part of my body. But what I saw was like an empty shell.
Ah. So Thomas,
Yeah.
ju
Mhm.
just to so that I can get a perspective of what you're saying. Um, so the first thing that you became aware of as you transitioned out of your body was the absence of pain.
Yeah, as the process began. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And I
Okay.
do know that this will happen for everyone, no matter how much pain they've been going through, because I witnessed it with other people that I've been with in their passing. And there comes a point when all that pain stops. So you get to experience being in the body without it. And then you keep, moving through the process. So it's good to know
Yes, it's
for those
quite
in the
comforting.
room and the family, to understand some of these things because we take a look behind the curtain. What's really going on is
Mhm.
quite an amazing thing for people. And we can talk about that more later. But, that process kept moving up and it was fascinating. I just was kind of captivated by the experience. And finally, when it got up to my heart area here, that's when I realized, oh, I,
So it started at your feet, like you said, and then
uh-huh.
traveled up. Were you watching this, or was this
Yeah,
just sensation?
no, I could see it. And slowly,
Mhm.
gradually, then when it got to the heart, that's when I realized I guess it's true. I am dying. And at that moment, I kind of had a choice. And that was either fight it and resist it and do everything I could to stay in this body or just let go. What's that saying? Let go and let God. It's like I was just gonna. I had that choice, and I decided to let go because I thought going back into that pain, I just can't do it anymore. I'm done with it. So I
Right.
figured whatever's happening, I'll just go with it. And at the time, I'd never really thought about death. You know, at that age,
22?
yeah, I figure I'm gonna live forever. Whatever. We're immortal. Yeah, nothing can hurt us.
Mhm.
So, but then, when that was happening, I knew that's what was happening, and I just chose to let go.
That speaks directly to, um, resistance. The the Borg says resistance is futile.
Right? Is that who said that? I was wondering who said that.
That's what it is. And the thing is that resistance is always a huge source of pain, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, suffering.
because it keeps you from being in the present moment
Mhm,
where joy lives.
mhm.
It doesn't live in the past or the future, but joy is in the present. So the more we condition ourselves to be in that, space. And there are ways to do that, the happier we are in life.
Yes. Trusting, right? That everything is going to be just fine.
Yeah. So
Mm,
that's what happened for me was I just let go and I knew, well, whatever, let's just see what happens. And so
mhm.
it kept continuing up and moving up through my face, and then it came up to the top of my head. And right back here, the curve of the crown back here,
Okay.
there's a little point. Everybody has one too.
The
And I
optical bone. Yeah.
and I then I saw my body on the bed. At first I didn't realize what that was because I'm up here. And so I thought, what's that? And I realized,
Uh,
I think that's me, but how can that be me? I'm up here looking down at that. And man, how could that thing be holding me? It's such tiny, and I was expanding, getting
oh,
bigger. But I didn't have any fear. I never had any fear at all throughout the entire process. And so when I was coming out of it, I just kept rising up above. And you know how when you have these little doll houses when you're a kid and the roof is off and you see all the rooms and the little
yeah.
chairs and the little people and all that. I kept moving up and I could see down in the hospital room and in the whole hospital actually as I moved up further. I saw my dad there, I saw my body, but it kept getting smaller and smaller. And finally I moved so far away that I lost complete interest in that at all because something else was happening now, much bigger. And then, yeah, people ask me, what did you see the light? Did you go through a tunnel? This and that. Back when I had this experience, there were no books yet on near-death experience. They were just coming out right after that.
What was this year?
1972, I think.
Okay. 72.
Yeah, and then Raymond Moody came out with his book, maybe that year, I don't know. But so I had no reference. I didn't realize this is what was happening,
Mhm.
but I was just dying. And but I did, I rose up and then I saw um, there was sort of a tunnel, but it was a like faint veil, that there was some border, but it was very faint. And it kept expanding, moving further out. The boundaries moved further and further out. I was expanding and
Yeah.
filling up that space. And then
Yeah.
at some point, um, I I just came out, and then there were some beings that greeted me, 5 beings, and they said they didn't speak, but they communicated to me, and they were kind of luminescent. I didn't know who they were. Little kids say those are angels, but I said, well, I didn't see any wings, but turns out I do see angels now since this happened, and I've not seen wings, but
And wings. Interesting.
I mean, why would they have wings? They don't need wings because they can be here and instantaneously be right here. They don't have
Right.
to fly over there. It's kind of funny. It's kind of a
Mhm.
metaphor, I guess.
Yeah, representation,
Yeah.
art. Yeah.
But so there I was. I just stopped, and then those beings appeared, and there were 5 of them. And
Mhm.
what they communicated to me was, "Don't worry, everything's all right. We're here
Mhm.
to help you. We love you." And they
Mhm.
kept communicating that over and over to me, and I felt this wave of love like I've never known. I mean, we're talking pure, no strings attached.
Unconditional love.
Yeah,
Felt it.
felt
Mhm.
it, and I felt at ease.
Mhm.
And then another being, exactly the opposite of them. I didn't have a physical form. My consciousness was perceiving, and I turned, and there was another person, and this was the person who, when I learned to meditate, like 10 days before this happened, uh, there was a little ceremony there. Little artifacts, and there was a picture of this person who had brought this form of meditation into society from India, and it was him. I didn't know anything about him really, other than that's the guy that was in the picture when I learned to meditate. But I had an amazing experience when I learned, and but there he was, and
And
he did,
wait a minute.
huh?
10 days before this happened.
Yeah, I just learned to meditate, and I was very excited because I had been going through a lot of depression and stuff because
Yeah, yeah.
I was witnessing all kinds of crazy stuff going on in the city in Fort Worth where I lived during that time. A lot of racial violence and drug violence and various things like that, where I was playing music at the time.
Yeah.
And I just, witnessed some things, and I just decided, I really don't really want to be in this, but I don't know what to do. And I want to have that peace that I had when I was a child growing up in the woods out in the country. How do I get it? And I started searching and seeking and all that. And finally, my sister had said, "Hey, I learned this meditation technique. You should do it." Okay. So I did it, and I had the most amazing experience. And I realized, this is what I think this might be the key to what I'm looking for.
So you were being prepared for what was to happen 10 days later.
Yeah, I didn't know. I joke with my sister later. I said, "Hey, this meditation is supposed to help you like be healthy and this and that and all that." She said, "Oh, don't worry. You just stepped on a bunch of sleeping elephants' tails, and they all got up, and all at once this happened." So, but it was good. It prepared me,
Did.
the journey I was about to take, and what happened when he became present. I realized this later is that he erased my memory of everything that came before. So that body back there, my entire life up to that point, that was all gone.
Wow. Amnesia, for
Yeah,
real.
wiped out clean. And so all I could experience was what was happening in the moment, present moment only.
And this is when you were on the other side still. This is
Yeah,
even
this
before
is
you.
as yeah, once I'd already left the body and then he appeared, and then that's what happened. So I was able to move forward into that journey without being attached to any expectation, any outcome that I might have a desire for. I had no desire,
Mm,
nothing, because there was no future or past. There was only the moment by moment. So that allowed me to keep moving. So I'd have this experience. And soon as it was done, well, then it didn't exist anymore because now there's a new experience in its place. And it kept moving me forward that way. Had I had that not happened, that my memory was gone, probably I would have had some preconceived idea about what it might be like, and
sure.
then I could have that, and that would be fine.
Mhm.
We can have that, but we could also maybe even have even more, but that's okay. But
Mhm.
so I realized much later as this entire thing, and as the gifts that came and all that later, once I made it back, is that person, Guru Dev, we call him, that was why he showed up, so that I could take that journey, be unencumbered, so that
Yeah.
all the way through all these levels of the creation, all the way back to the source
Mhm.
that gave rise to manifesting consciousness, particles, creation, all this, and then
Wow.
back into this world. And then, of course, when I came back into the world, there I was. I things sped up, and I was suddenly slammed back into this body, and it seemed like a lifetime, that whole journey. But I got slammed back in the body, and it was like my head flew back and my eyes opened, and I saw something above me, and it was kind of glowing a little bit, little sculptured looking things that were glowing. It reminded me of Cheetos, those little snack foods. And then it came into focus. And later I realized, oh, those were those ceiling tiles they have in the hospitals.
Oh, yeah. Back in the day.
Yeah, so when I go in, if I see somebody in a hospital or any building, and I look up and I see that, I kind of chuckle and go, oh, yeah. but but I didn't know anything. I
Wow.
had no memory of anything. I didn't know what that was, what a wall was. Saw my father sitting in a chair, and then I saw my hand move, and I wondered, what's that? And I realized I did that. And I wondered, what is this? I'm in this. I wasn't afraid though, because I knew from that journey who I really am, the connection I have throughout all this creation, everything, that there's no gap, there's no separation in this whole creation, except in our minds, our illusion of separateness, which
Mhm.
actually is sort of the source of suffering, the illusion of separateness.
You know what you're describing?
Mm.
Just as you said that, as you described, you noticed that your hand moved and that when you looked around, you didn't know what anything was. That must be the experience of a brand new baby
Yeah.
Hmm.
Babies come into the world, they know who they are, what they are, except their brains are not developed. They only have one brainwave when
Hmm.
they come into the world, and that's delta brainwave.
Delta. Yeah.
And I've
Sleep.
done a bunch of research and studying on brainwaves, and in fact, some of my work that I do that you can bring up later,
Sure.
the healing spectrums is has to do with how, cultivating the experience of the delta brainwave, and that's the same one those little guys have. But they don't think and analyze and process until they're maybe closer to 3 or 4 years old.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
when the other brainwaves begin to come online, the beta, the thinking processes, analysis, that and that. But when they come in, man, they're just witnessing, experiencing. And that's what my journey was like, in that way.
Yeah.
It,
Just observing. Hmm.
yeah. So there I was in the body, and I didn't realize anything. I wasn't worried. I was just experiencing. And then I heard myself speak. And I wondered how I knew how to do that and
Yeah.
what I said. I remember I saw my father and I said, "What happened?" And he said, "Well, don't you remember, son, you were really sick there and we thought we were going to lose you for a while." I had no idea what he meant, because I didn't have that memory at that time.
Yeah.
It was like, well, okay. And I didn't realize he was my father. I didn't recognize him. I just knew he was a person like now I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Some things were connecting. So I just wonder, I mean, you weren't a newborn baby, you were a man who had a life, a whole life, people who loved him, people who knew him.
Mm.
How did you adjust to life after that? I mean, I just can imagine the emotions, the how'd you do it spiritually and even physically? Did you have to learn all those things again?
Yeah, it was really a wonderful thing that my parents, very, very loving, and I was 22 years old at the time, and they had a nice house at a lake um, outside of Fort Worth, and so they took me in and were trying to help nurture me, at least both physically and how to plug into the world again. So
Yeah.
it was I had a protective environment. You couldn't turn me loose even if I was physically able to go, like I wouldn't know anything.
Right. Mm,
But I didn't worry. It was funny because I just was enjoying experiencing being a human being that, I didn't know that was going to happen. That here I am, I'm experiencing this.
mm,
And they took care of me, they nurtured me. Food wise, dietary, I had restrictions, couldn't eat any solid foods for a while. It was all pureed vegetables, and certain restrictions like that. But also, my body was so weak. I came out weighing barely 100 pounds. I was in the hospital for a month. So, they had to take me in a wheelchair to get me back home and all that. So, I was pretty weak and I needed to be taken care of like that.
mhm.
But the whole time I never felt like I was sick, or I just was so enjoying being here in this world. You can imagine like it would be kind of like a little baby, like, oh yeah.
Wow.
And so I wasn't around people other than them, and they started gradually helping me to have some memory. I remembered them pretty quickly.
Mhm.
But I didn't know much anything else. And we had neighbors who all knew who I was and all that. And so gradually, my mother would invite one at a time to come over, and we sit out on the patio, and she would give them a heads up ahead of time. Look, he may not remember you, so don't worry, he's okay. But and so
Thanks, mama.
that's how I started getting reintroduced to things.
Yeah.
There's something in my book too where I talk about the first time when I realized that maybe other people are not experiencing things the same way I am.
Okay.
I
That
thought
would be
everybody, since I'm a human being and I see other human beings, they must be experiencing what I'm experiencing. And then there were some events that happened right away that
yeah,
helped me understand, like, oh, I guess, I guess not, maybe.
right. That's my next question. So, what do you think the biggest challenge was? You know, here you are, you're coming back with this super expanded awareness of reality, right?
Hmm.
And how was that, bringing that, condensing it down into this daily human life?
Well, it's funny because even though I was in this physical aspect of being, that awareness of all of that I knew that I experienced in that journey, that's when I had the full intact memory of everything, totally everything that happened in that. While it was happening, there was no memory. Only after I returned and the body was here, I was in the body, that was the memory I had. Everything. And
Mm,
so I knew what I am, who I am, where, that this is all connected somehow. And I wasn't worried. I figured if I'm supposed to know something, I will, whatever. And so I wasn't really concerned. I wasn't sweating anything. But what happened was like I was reminded that I had learned that meditation technique. I said,
mhm.
well, okay, how do I do it? Tell me again. And started doing it. And man, the most wonderful, beautiful, expansive experiences that helped to sustain that experience that I had in that journey. And so my perception totally was expanded. I was able to perceive subtle aspects of my surroundings and creation and things. So it just kept building and building. So it that was never I never lost that. Some people who didn't like have had near death experiences and they didn't, um, they still had the memory of who they were in life before that.
Yeah.
That's where they struggle
Mhm.
because they come back, they're different, they're changed, they're not going to be the same,
Mm.
but they're still them. But man, everything's different. And now those people, their family and friends and all that, they realize something's different here. And they're not always comfortable with that kind of change that fast.
No,
That's where people sometimes struggle trying to, you can't be that again, maybe a little bit of it, but so how do you be authentic to your experience of what you know, but you're trying to please other people because they seem uncomfortable with you? That's where they get in trouble. I didn't have to deal with that because I had no memory from before.
look at that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. That again, that speaks to ah, the whole idea of living in the moment and how freeing it is.
Yeah. Oh man. Because really, when you think about it, well, what time is it? It's
Mhm.
now.
Right now.
There's not some big giant clock out in space somewhere that's ticking. We have to create that dynamic or that system to function in this world. We kind of need to manage things in a way, but but how we create more effectively is whenever we're closest to that space of now. Creating from the present is much more powerful than creating from the past. We use the past creatively, and really the past is sort of like a way to protect ourselves as well.
Sure.
But we can trust when we learn how to trust being in the present moment.
Mm.
Like somebody said, well, how? I mean, here's what I ask audiences sometimes when I give a talk like, okay, let's imagine that you woke up and you had absolutely no memory of ever having been here before. Anything of your life before, you have no memory. What would you do?
Wow.
And I tell them that's what happened to me, and then I can share the story. But would you
Mhm.
be okay? And people would say, "Gosh, how would how how would I feed myself? How would I do anything?" It's like we're so used to managing everything. And we get into micromanaging everything in our lives too.
Oh,
And
yeah.
sometimes when you want to create, when you kind of ease up and let go a little bit, sometimes the deeper sense of intuition and all the ability that we have to create effectively can come forward. So you know how when it is you decide like, well, I want to do this and here's how I see it happening. And so you've got your plan and you're working it and you start to struggle. So, well, that's not happening the way I need it to happen. Come on now. And then
Right.
finally you just throw your hands up and go, okay, Lord, here's what I want. Next thing you know, boom, boom, boom. All these moving parts that you were trying to manage, suddenly they all just happen and it manifests the purpose and the goal of what you were trying to create.
Surrender, right? You
Yeah,
maybe there's just asking the right questions and being in the moment, being curious.
yeah,
How's this gonna unfold?
yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Mm,
But so anyway, back to your question, like how was it reintegrating?
mhm.
Physically, it was at least a year and a half to 2 years before I was pretty well over the physical aspect of it. And there were a lot of things that happened. So when I came back, the all my friends, I finally was able to go back to the city and rejoin with my friends. And I was pretty weak at the time. I probably went back sooner than I should have. But I
Yeah.
insisted. I convinced that because I knew I had to get out of the hospital first. I said, I won't heal here. I got to take me out. And then I talked my dad into taking me back to the city because I was married at the time and my wife was there. And there was a whole story about that in the book about I didn't even remember that I was married and that I had a wife.
Wow, yes.
And told
That
me,
was a challenge because that's a very unique type of relationship, and here you are, you're so different.
yeah. And I said, well, I want to meet my wife again. So they
Mhm.
brought her. There was
First
trepidation. People were concerned about how's this going to go and everything. And as she was speaking, and I looked into her eyes, the memories started coming back in, and I realized who she is. And
Yeah.
not all the memories. I still have gaps where there are
Mm.
things I don't remember.
Whole connection between the 2 of you, so you were able to recognize it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But then we went back and we were with our friends, and that's where there was struggle, but not on my part, on their part,
Mm.
because now I was different. They knew it. I still loved them all, but it came to a point when one by one, gradually, they were falling away. But I was drawn into new kind of community, like well, I started meditating again. I started going to these meditation courses, this and that. So I was creating a new little world around myself, and I don't blame them for any of that because you know how can you handle that? They don't understand it. And I
Right.
just wish them well and bless them. And I don't ever see them really. Most of them, I think there's maybe one or two, but I love them all.
Mm. Yeah, that's unconditional love.
And
Yeah.
I've helped people over the years through my work with the International Association for Near Death Studies out of Chicago. There was one of their main satellite organizations there, and they used to have me come and speak. But I worked with some people who had gone through a near death experience, but they were really struggling with it for the reasons I just described. And so I was able to help them and also their families,
Yes.
explain to them, listen,
Understand.
here's why they're the way they are.
Yeah.
Well, here's what they need.
Mm.
And so bring some balance that way and help them move through that a little more gracefully than they might have otherwise.
Mhm. There's that compassion.
Mhm.
Compassion always has to be applied, especially things we don't understand. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, like I could talk about a million things on that. So, but you should ask me what you wanted me to talk
All
about.
right. Well, my next question is that mentioned that you came back with this unique healing ability. You know,
Mm,
it's something that you said emerged after that experience. And how did
mhm.
that begin? What was the essence of the now called healing spectrum's self-treatment method?
Yeah, there's self treatment and treating others too, because I train individuals and doctors and healthcare professionals and people like you that do work in a
I
way to help
by training.
elevate people, and help them become, utilize the fullness of their capacity as human beings on this planet. We're not just here to experience and then die, eventually. Uh, we're here for a reason, and I understood that from my journey. Um, but when I first came back, I had no idea I was going to have any kind of gifts or anything. I was just experiencing whatever. But that refined perception kept growing, and over time, I think who knows, it might have been almost like 5 to 8 years later when it happened. Things were progressing. I feel it all the time when something's about to unfold. I can
So,
tell.
one second.
Huh?
You said refined perception.
Hmm.
What is that?
Well, you know, most of us in our lives, our reality is what's in front of our faces.
Yeah.
Mm, We don't really look too much beyond that.
Mhm.
Think I'm raising my hand.
And the past, right? What's here?
Oh, yeah. So, oh yeah, okay. So the way that happened was over time that perception kept refining. I kept seeing things more subtly than, like I say, we generally do. I had a few experiences where I could see subtle aspect, even all the way down to a cellular level on some environmental things. So I had this one experience where this I was out in the woods visiting a friend, and I was sitting out there, and I started feeling something going on. And then the next thing I know, I'm looking up at the sky. It's just almost evening, but not quite. Still some light. And the sky started changing in color to more of a gold. And that gold was the same gold that I experienced in my near death experience. And I had experienced a few other times along the way, here and there, once I made it back. But it was filling up all the space around me, and then it kept coming down. It came down into the treetops and permeated everything, all the way from surface all the way into the inside. And then it just kept coming down, and then it came down, into me. And I looked at my arm at one point, and I could see that it was filled with that gold. I was just becoming that. I still had my bodily form, but everything was getting filled with that gold. And then I went into, as a result of that, I went into that time zone where there's now the now. So I was only perceiving moment by moment, but I had enough awareness to realize I better just go home. It might be the safest thing for everybody right now. I don't know. So I'm driving through town, and I go through, I look in the mirror, and I see that there was an intersection back there that had stop signs and stuff. And I wondered, did I even stop there? I don't know, because now there's just this moment. And so I kept moving forward, and I finally found my way back to my home. And I sat on the bed for about a week. I never slept, I never ate,
Wow.
but I was aware the entire time. And at one point, this might sound kind of cosmic to some people, but that person, Guru Dev, that came to me in the journey when I left the body and all, and he's
The the meditation
yeah,
teacher?
mhm.
Uh-huh.
He was the original founder. I mean, by the time I learned, he had long passed. He died in 1952, I think. So I never really met him. It was just a picture of him, and so uh, I felt the presence of a person sitting right in front of me, and I couldn't really see, but I knew there was someone there, and I didn't hear any words or anything, but I had the sense that something is being given to me.
Mhm.
Something's being transferred to me. I don't know what, and I didn't worry about it. I knew this is part of that
Mm.
process. And so that went on for about a week. And then I had a gig I had to go to. I'm a musician as well. And I thought, okay, well, I guess I have to get up and go do that. And so I was wondering how that was going to go. Like I do have to focus. And I had to stop and get some water on the way. And somebody took my hand and said, "Oh, hey, Thomas, I want to introduce you to some friends." And when that person took my hand, all of a sudden, I got grounded. I realized, okay, I can do this now. So that pulled me back into, being in this physical aspect of things the way I needed to be at the time to accomplish what I needed to accomplish. But there was still some essence of that with me the whole time through the gig and everything, and then driving home. And then when I got back to my friend, I had my girlfriend at the time, and she was sitting on a couch or kind of half laying on the couch, and she had some crutches. And I said, "Well, what happened?" And she said she must have damaged a tendon in her ankle, and she had gone to the doctor, and he said, "Yeah, you have. It's possible there's a tear there. So, um, but here, use these crutches, and then we'll set another appointment to decide what we need to do." So she was sitting there, and I thought, "Oh man, it's terrible." So I was sitting on the couch, and she had this pillow just plopping on my lap, and so her foot was sitting on my lap there, and we're talking, and I looked down at her foot, and for some reason, I didn't even think to do it. For some reason, I found that my hand was above her foot, about just that high, and we're talking. She's over here, I'm looking and communicating, but also it was like a split screen. I started seeing inside her foot, and I didn't really know what was happening, but it seemed natural in some way because of some of the other experiences I'd had by that time. So I didn't really question it. But then I saw this kind of red color, like you would imagine if there's inflammation or something.
Oh, hot, red hot, like.
Yeah. And then I started seeing a little change, a little more kind of violet. It's shifted to a violet color, which
Mhm.
later I realized that's what I call a healing spectrum. It has a
Mm.
particular purpose. And then I saw this little, what now I call artifact. It was something that was some kind of remnant of the trauma that was there, and it looked like an old rusty, crusty spring that had been buried in the dirt for like 10 years or so. You know how that might look, piece of steel. And I knew that wasn't really a natural part of her physiology, but it was something there. And then the next thing I know, that violet, it helped that thing to start dissolving and then rinsing away like water across sand. It just went. And then there was this soft blue like color that was inside the foot. No more red, no more inflammation stuff. And I didn't really, even then, I did not realize what was happening because this is the first time it happened. And I never had any intention to do any kind of healing like that, that wasn't my thing. But then she had to get up to go to the restroom. And so she got up and she kind of forgot that she's supposed to use the crutch. She put some pressure on her foot and it didn't hurt. Put a little more pressure on her foot, it didn't hurt. And she walked all the way to the restroom without the crutches and then walked back without them and sat down. And that was the end of it.
Wow.
There was nothing else to do. I mean, if she'd gone back to the doctor, he would have said, "What? There's nothing wrong with you." So we were
Mhm.
both kind of surprised about that. That was
Wow.
an experience. I didn't know there would be more, but she told somebody. And of course, they said, "Oh, well, I have this shoulder thing. You think it could help with that?" I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. And so that's how it kind of started that I began to share that more and more. People kept kind of coming to me and asking me, to help with different things. And
Wow.
it grew over time.
Yeah.
That first color, that healing spectrum, I call it was violet. That was the only one for a while, and then another one after a while, a different one, like a deep, rich blue one came in, and I didn't know what it did, but I just pay attention. Over time, I realized the association with different types of distresses and what these particular spectrums tend to deal with. And
Okay.
there are about five of them. A new one just emerged in this month
Mm.
that I didn't know was going to happen. But so there are about mm, five or six now, different
Wow.
ones. And
Wow.
maybe more, but I don't know, and I don't worry about it.
Yeah. It's just happening as it should.
Yeah.
So this is something that you do for people. You do healing spectrum sessions.
Mhm.
You do them virtually right now,
Yeah.
right?
Once COVID happened, I used to have an office in Evanston, up around Chicago, and
Mhm.
people would come. And but then when COVID happened, well, we got to figure out how to do all of this somehow uh, online, and so Zoom became very popular, and I figured out how to do that. So I've been doing this work for over 20 years now.
Wow. And it transcends the physical. I mean, you can do it virtually. So what we're talking about
Yeah,
is energy, frequency, and vibration.
yeah. And the thing is like people ask me, like when you're sending energy, and I always stop them and say, I'm not sending energy because the idea of having to send energy somewhere might seem to indicate that there's a space where there's no energy. There needs
Distance.
to be some. I know
Mhm.
from my experience in that journey that there is no gap. Everything is absolutely connected. Every single particle of the entire creation is connected, including us. We're part of that. So, why it could work remotely is because of that.
Wow.
So,
Quantum entanglement comes to
yeah,
mind.
yeah, quantum physics. I love when I finally got exposed to that. I went like, yeah, man.
Explains a lot, doesn't it?
I think that I had a quantum, if we could call it near-death experience, I would call it a quantum experience, really, quantum
Yeah.
physics experience,
Mhm.
because it helped me to understand quantum physics more because I experienced it in
Yeah.
that journey. And so I really like that. But that's so after that happened, like I say, more people asked me about that. So over time, people kept asking me, can I teach clients? Said, can you teach us how to do this? And
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't know. Nobody taught me. It was just a gift. I don't know how I would do it. And they said, yeah, oh man, we really would like to learn. I said, I tell you what, if it ever comes to me that I would know how to do it, I'll let you know.
Mhm.
So I forgot about it. And then one day I was just riding my bicycle down Lakeshore Drive along the lake in Michigan, in Chicago, not thinking about it at all. I'm just riding. And the next thing I know, boom, here's the full package of this is how you do that.
Yeah, damn.
My friend called me. He said, you had a download.
Yeah,
Well, okay.
I love those
I
downloads.
turned around and I raced back to the house and I get sit down at the keyboard, the type computer, and I typed up everything there so that it would be in a form. But I didn't really need that. But I figured if I'm going to teach people, then I will do that. So anyway, the idea was that everything that I was supposed to do, that's all I had to do. So I called everybody and said, "Hey, y'all want to learn?" Oh yeah, absolutely. So I had 6 people that came in Chicago. My very first time to teach this. I taught them how to treat others because at the time there was no self treatment. That came later. How that would be. But man, all I did was what that download gave me, and it worked
Mhm.
flawlessly the very first time, totally effortless, to do. And they were able to do it. So then I just continued on, and I've trained people all over the world, you know, and things continue to develop more and more. I have different programs that I have. I have the personal sessions. I
Mhm.
have the trainings, for learning how to do the self treatment, so that you can continue to enliven those natural, those specific brain waves that have to do with activating your body's natural healing processes. And also, it can help reduce pain, various things like that. It's not through any kind of management aspect. It's just a simple, innocent thing that happens. And it allows that brainwave to come online, even though you're not asleep, which is when you normally get that. Uh, but it comes on. And
Okay.
And so your consciousness and your body, everything about the physiology, all the healing ability we have is present within us, but it's just it gets gunked up with a lot of stresses and things and injuries. So it begins to release some of those old remnants of trauma that get in the way of letting our blueprint or DNA function the way it was really intended to function.
I love the way you put that. I love the way you put that. It's like these artifacts build up. if I'm understanding you correctly, of all the things that happen day to day, moment by moment. And here we get to clear them so that the body is free to heal as it was designed to without all this other stuff in the way.
Yeah, and it's all a neurological thing, when we go through different experiences that we're struggling with, and like the thing about when somebody says something or does something, or you see something, you might even smell something, sometimes it'll trigger some past emotional experience you had. And then so the brain, the neurological system, that it has been entrained in, it sees that as a signal to produce a result, which is how you always respond in a certain situation.
From the
Be,
past,
be as
right?
yeah, it's from the past. Could be back when you were a little child, and here you are in your 50s or whatever, and you don't know that anymore.
Mhm.
And you're responding to something in the present, but you're responding from the past, and it's not as effective. What if you were just right here in the present, and this happens? How do you handle that? So the healing spectrums helps to gradually begin to release those. They're part of the foundation of a neurological entrainment.
Yeah.
And
Environment.
so that goes to that thing about, well, what is suffering? I know you were going, I don't know if you've asked me the other questions you wanted to ask, but that kind of leads into that.
That's what we want to get to.
All right, cool.
In this book, Thomas, you outline something I've been thinking about for a very long time. And in my practice, I work with it a great deal, but you simplified it to the way that anybody can make sense of it and apply it. And it's something that you call the habit of suffering, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Please, let's go into that. You know,
Let's, let's take a deep dive. Yeah. Well, I have this thing. I realized it one day, and these are the way things come to me sometimes. I'm not like trying to figure things out, analyzing and say, well, let's see, how could I deal with it? I wait till something happens and I see something and I recognize what's going on because I'm used to that. My brain works that way. And especially in the sessions, I'm able to perceive these subtle aspects of
absolutely.
physiology. So, with this thing, I had to call it something, so I ended up calling it shortcuts to wholeness. Wholeness, shortcuts to wholeness. How to change the habit of suffering. And so when people say, well, habit of suffering, who would want to create a habit of suffering? I don't want to do that. I wouldn't choose to do that.
You can choose that.
Well, what do I mean by this habit of suffering? I'm not talking about a mental habit. I'm talking about a physiological habit. So what happens is that we'll have some experience, and maybe there's some trauma in that experience. The brain and the neurological processes, the neurotransmitters and neuroreceptors, they will fire, and then so that's a little groundwork, and you respond as a result. And so then the next time something happens later on, there's not the same thing, but it's kind of has a little flavor. The neurological processing, it recognizes that as a signal, and it will fire that again.
Again, like that's entrainment right there.
Yeah, that's entrainment. And then so you respond kind of the same way. And after a while, every time these things happen, that it's like a chef, you put your order in to the waiter or waitress, they take it to the kitchen and they start whipping it up because they got the recipe in there and all the ingredients, and they know what to do to create what you ordered. That's the way the brain works. Yeah.
Yeah, and you keep coming back because you like what you ordered before, so you want the same thing.
And you might not like what you ordered, but hey, that's the recipe, man. And so you can try to intellectually change a habit. And I have this saying, I say, people hate it when I say this. You can't change a bad habit,
I like that.
but you can introduce something else maybe more to your liking, that after a while that other habit will begin to fall away because now you're using this one more.
Right?
So
Neural
that's form of
pathways.
entrainment as well. So now you're entraining the mind to function the brain to function in a different way. So we might blame ourselves for like long term dysfunctional behavior that we respond to situations, it's gone on forever, and we just feel exasperated that why can't I get rid of this thing and everything. But see, the thing is how you can kind of ease up that sense of even guilt or shame or whatever it may be is that, hey, it's a physiological thing, because you wouldn't choose really, but you can't help it. It happens.
Exactly.
So I
Yeah.
go about
Brain.
changing that.
Hmm. It's the brain, not the mind.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's
Hmm.
like you said earlier, like resistance is futile. The more you push against it, the more it seems to just be there. And so what we do traditionally is that we'll go to a therapist or a counselor, and they can help us to maybe uncover and understand why that got started, you know, like when's the first time you remember this happening, that kind of thing,
Right.
psychoanalysis. And then you go, oh, I see why every time this kind of thing happens, I react this way. Ah, good. Now I know. So I don't have to respond that way anymore, do I? Guess what? You walk out the door, first thing happens, somebody says something, bang, there you are. You're going like, wait a minute. I thought I understood this. Why is this happening?
Intellectually, you did.
Yeah. So what that tells you is like, okay, where is it? Why did it happen? It's entrained. It's a neurological, not only neurological, there's a
Hmm.
circulatory, the endocrine system, the neurological, all this stuff. It's like that's in the recipe book. And the chef takes all of that, works through that, and then presents it to you. So all those systems are in play.
Mhm.
So you can't go system by system and try to change it, from the outside in. So
Right.
what the healing spectrum does is it helps go from the inside out. That's
Mhm.
more powerful. I'm not saying you shouldn't go to a counselor or a therapist and all that. That's important, at least to make an effort to come to an understanding. But then, if that was enough, a lot of therapists would be out of business.
True.
They'd have to be not so good at their job.
That's all right. We need to move to the next phase anyway.
Yeah. So, really, what it means is like now I train individuals who are counselors and therapists how to use the healing spectrums method in their work, along with what they do. But this is as an adjunct, complementary method that can help accelerate the healing processes in their journey.
I love it.
So that's a lot of the work that I do. In fact, I have for a while I've done this thing called the enhanced emotional healing sessions. I do personal sessions with people that are more kind of about physical things and whatever, but things come up. But there are those cases where long-standing dysfunctional reactions that a person has just struggled with maybe all their lives, like people that have been abused and things like that, that
Yeah.
really affects them throughout their lives. And
Mhm.
how do you release the emotional baggage of that so that you can begin to live life in a more full way that you might desire? And so I have a method that I call the enhanced emotional healing session. And those are different. That's about a 2 hour process that takes place. But by the time you come out of that at the end, a lot of that stuff, those artifacts, those remnants, and the neurological stuff. And I'm not thinking about brainwaves, by the way, when I'm doing this work. I'm just witnessing. And
Yeah.
there's the whole process that happens in that. But by the time you come out of it, and I've seen it like change people's life. People tell me that it totally changed their life. I said, well, how's that even possible? But it's because that networking in a very short period of time got released, and
Yeah.
now you put in new intentions.
Mhm.
for your life. And it's easier for it to become a reality because you're not constantly focusing or resisting or trying to overcome something that you can't overcome it through the mind.
Right.
The mind will play tricks on you. It's used to that entrainment. It doesn't want to let that go. So something has to happen, that coherence that comes into play in the sessions that allows that stuff to begin to surface and be released. And that's a really nice time then you can input what your real intentions are.
Yes.
Most people in life, when you ask them, what do you want? I don't know if you had this experience, but well, what do you want? And usually what they'll tell you is what they don't want. They'll say, well, what I want
Like,
is for that person to stop doing that.
it's them.
Yeah. Like, or, well, what I'd really like is uh, not to be sad when
Mhm.
something happens. And I said, okay, I understand that. That's what you don't want, right?
Again.
What And what I discover is that people, after a while, they totally forget what it is they actually really want. Why are they here? Like when you're young and you're getting ready to go to college or something like that, you're all inspired and excited about what you're going to do and everything. And gradually over time, life happens, and then you begin to forget why am I here? What am I doing? So this is helping people to come back to that core and
Big.
begin to express themselves the way they really are entitled to as a human being.
Mhm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So before we close out, I wonder if you would be willing to kind of walk us through this a step-by-step process of releasing, this habit of suffering.
Yeah, because the self treatment thing that I do a training and teach people how to do this. Um, when people are doing this, it begins to cultivate that value of coherence that the healing spectrums brings, and then so the more regularly you do this little thing, it begins to shift and change so that you're not uh, accumulating the stresses of events. It's like water over a duck's back. After a while, it gets to where you don't retain the trauma that happened. So it's better to rinse it away quickly rather than let it sit and then it takes hold and begins to network and all that. So that's the
Mm.
purpose of this thing. So I call it, shortcuts to wholeness. So essentially, what'll happen is when you're going along, let's say everything is fine, everything's perfect, man, there's not a care in the world, you're as happy as you could be. And for some lame reason, you decide, what can I do to suffer? Not that you would think that, but well, first thing you do is start making a bunch of judgments about something being wrong or right or better or worse or any of that stuff. And before you know it, you're going to be kind of feeling not so good, right? So, so what'll happen is what we don't realize is that we have a built-in alarm system in our bodies. Every human being has this. It's a little alarm system we don't use. Nobody told us about it, but we have it. So before you go down that rabbit hole when something happens and uh-oh, here you go. And now you're getting that recipe put out on a plate again.
Right.
Before you do that, there's a moment that you can catch this and do this little thing. So what is that moment? Always, before you're really engaged in that craziness or whatever might happen, the same results, there is a physical sensation in your body somewhere.
Mm.
For some people, it's in the throat, some it's in the chest and the heart, some it's in the gut. But there will always be that. But most of the time, we just blow right past it. Like, we don't even know it. We just like, there we are, because it's what we do. But if you could train yourself to recognize that moment, then there might be something you could do that can begin to change that pattern. So all it is this little method is you can interrupt that cycle briefly. Just you throw something in there that can possibly change the trajectory. Like shooting basketballs, you could be really good at it. And every time you throw it, it goes in. You don't even have to look. You just go boom, boom, boom. And I throw up a ball, though, your ball is going to go in because it always does. But I throw one up and it hits the ball and it sends it on a different trajectory. So it changed something. It changed that cycle. All I did was interrupt the cycle. And so
Mm.
this is like that. So when you begin to do this, as soon as something happens, you feel that, then you there are two versions of long version and short version, but you can just stop. As soon as you feel that sensation, you don't have to keep going, just stop and ask yourself, what do I feel? What do I
Mhm.
feel? Not what do you think about what you feel, because go there. Otherwise, you're going to end up in the same place. So, what do I feel? Oh, oh, there's this sensation right here. Oh, then you just be with that for a moment, and then so then you can say, what was it like? I don't even do it so much anymore because I've conditioned myself so that there's a choice like suffer, not suffer, suffer, not suffer. Well, okay. But so once you've recognized that and you acknowledge that, then the question could be, what's the judgment? But again, you don't think. Don't do that. There's only one answer. And if you get any other answer, you're not doing this. This is the answer. Oh, I'm just saying I'm separate again. That's all.
Separation.
Because
Mhm.
that's what happened. The only way you can experience that kind of distress is if there's an a, a an experience or belief that you were separate,
Mhm.
which is weird because I know we're not. That's
Yeah.
not possible. But we can convince ourselves that we are, and therefore have the experience of as if it were true. So and then you just let go. Now, at that point, you may still experience whatever was going because it's been the pattern for a while. But the more often you do this little thing, uh, it'll begin to shift and change. Now, that's the long version, just so that you understand what really took place. Or
Yeah.
now in regular life, things happen a lot faster.
Mhm.
So somebody says something, does something, or some experience, and next thing you know, man, you're already in the soup. What do you do? Then the short version is this: you just yell out inside. If you're by yourself, you can yell out this. If you're with a bunch of people, it might be weird, but you can just say stop, like loud enough in your head that you will stop.
Mhm.
And then you just ask yourself, what time is it?
Mhm.
And then the only answer is it's now. It's now. So what that means is that you are responding because the past was you were relying on all those past responses and experiences and the networking that was there. But when you recognize it, then that's what you do. You stop and you ask yourself that, and then you let go. You may still end up kind of that way, but gradually what you'll see is it's shifting and changing. And so I've asked people who have been doing this that I taught this. Man, I've been teaching this for so long. I tell counselors and therapists, you can share this with anybody you want, and they do, and it makes a difference. I've asked people, so how are you doing? Do you still do that? That oh yeah. Well, what's it like? I mean, how's it affected you? And I've had people tell me like it's changed my life, and
Sure.
I'm
Mhm.
thinking, well, how's that possible? What do you mean it changed your life? They said quite often they'll say, I don't sweat the small stuff like I used to.
Yes. Yes.
But they're freeing themselves. They're breaking the neurological entrainment that was there that always supported that kind of behavior or response. And so as that fades and falls, then they're more able to experience being in that present moment. And I always tell people there's a whole like my program. I'm creating this new program called the 30-day emotional healing reset.
Love it. Reset.
And
Yeah.
they'll keep track for 30 days, but we have a call once a week during that time. But they're little assignments they have, and by the time you're done with that, you're pretty well done with most of whatever those big things were. because you're putting in something new now, and you have the fertile ground to do it because the healing spectrums is helping to unwind some of that networking, and now you get to
Sure.
entrain new intention now.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty powerful thing. So I'm looking forward to getting that set up and everything. It'll be on my website. I'm in the process at this moment of creating a new website, but it still works. So people can just go to thomascase.com and you'll see that there are all the different things I do and that I offer in different personal sessions, um, the trainings and things, learning how to do self treatment, learning how to treat others, um, and a few other little things, that we do. So, and if anybody wants to reach me, they can always go to, just go to thomascase.com and you can contact me through that. And if there are sessions that you want to do or anything, there's a way that you can just sign up for those, whatever it is you want. Also, the book, I just direct people over to Amazon. You can go through my website and it'll send you directly to that link as well.
Excellent. Wonderful. Everyone go and check out Thomas's work and definitely get the book. It's good reading. Um, it's read as if you're speaking to a friend, and I love that. It's in such natural language, very clear, absolutely wonderful. Also, um, it'll be in the description. So all of Thomas's contact information will be in the description box. And I'll also put a QR code right here in the video. You
Mm.
know how to get a hold to him and partake of all of these wonderful gifts that he's brought back. So
Mm.
before we close, Thomas, through this experience, you've been through a great deal and you've come back with something wonderful to heal the world. What message do you most want people to carry from that time I died and all of your healing work? What do you want people to know?
As you go through that book, it starts from the time when I'm a child, kind of little nature boy living out in the woods in the country, and, and the experiences that were cultivating this. I look back and I realize, oh, we all come into this world with a purpose and some gifts that we can share. We might not know what they are, but we do things that eventually cultivate that. So things are going on in our lives and we don't even realize it's leading somewhere, so it's going on. But what I realized through this experience and through this work, the big thing, and there's probably a couple of chapters in the book that you eventually get there where it talks about how I came to understand the who, what, when, where, why, and how of being, what we're doing, why are we here, what are we doing. They don't teach us that in school. They
Mm.
should. but but like I got to understand this and realize that, and that I realized we all have the capacity to do that and to know. So the reason I do the work I do is, sure, I'm glad it helps with certain conditions, physical maybe, and emotional and all that. But the real reason I do it is because of the experience that happened in some of the sessions that I do, is helps people to fall into that space where they go into that state of stillness, which is when you're closest to being connected to the entire field of creation. And everybody has one desire, no matter what we're doing. We all want to know the full range of being as we exist. And then many people will say, well, I want to know God, and I call God source, but you can call it whatever it is. If it's the originating point that gives rise to and supports and sustains, permeates every single particle of the creation, why shouldn't we be able to experience that in our lives here? We don't have to die to
Yeah.
have it. It's our birthright. And so that's what I want people to realize. It's like, do whatever we can to allow that experience to happen. You can't go over there and get it. It's already here. It's just that you have to come from the inside out and let it open itself, because that's the greatest fulfillment that we have. And so I'm thankful that my work helps provide that opportunity in that platform because that's part of it. And that's the real reason I do what I do. And that's the real reason I wrote this book. It's not just another near death experience story for the sake of a near death experience. It has a purpose, and it's like you said earlier, when I wrote this book, I decided I will share it the same way I do when I'm giving a talk and telling and sharing my journey with anybody, which takes about 2 hours to share it in real time, person to person, at least. And so I thought I'll just put it in the same words, just like I'm speaking and sharing. And that was, I've gotten good feedback about that. Then I think I've accomplished that. And I really feel good that at least it's accessible to many, many people. It doesn't matter what your religious beliefs are or any of that stuff. Everybody can pull something from this that can make it hopefully make a difference in their lives. That's why I do it.
Okay. And please read the book, and you can read about the brainwave studies. There's actually science behind this.
Oh yeah.
Um, that you've got to read it because it's very detailed. But Thomas, once again, thank you so much for joining us here on the Illuminations Media Network.
Oh, thank you for having me. And I know we'll do some more fun stuff and everything. And this has just been really pleasurable. I love our connection that we have.
We do. We're both. You're my homeboy from Chicago,
Yeah, yeah.
and then we both live in the South now too. So we're
Yeah.
nearby.
You never know where I'm going to end up. I've lived all over the country and,
You know,
yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, until next time, peace and blessings to everyone. And remember to take excellent care of yourself and know that the source of all creation is right here within you. We're
Mm.
not separate, we are always connected.